Uh, are we rolling now? Okay.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, welcome to the October 23rd Outdoor Adventure Commission meeting. We are going to start with our agenda item number 1. We have some new commissioners, and we'd actually like to take some time for them to introduce themselves if they're here. Do we have Commissioner Dave Schallenberger online, or is he here yet?
Hey, Jason,
Hey.
or hey, Representative, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I'm on
Go
my
ahead.
way. I just was wrapping up some meetings up north, and I'm on the freeway. So I'm just a couple minutes late, but I'm excited to be part of the crew, and I'll be there in just a minute.
All right.
So
We're happy to have you.
thanks.
And he's filling the slot for the outdoor recreation industry for those that are and he's for those that are wondering. Then do we have a Tyson Roberts? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, Tyson Roberts. I'm Vice President of Utah Farm Bureau. Happy to serve. I don't know what I'm here for, but no, I'm joking. I was briefed a little bit, but no, happy to represent agriculture. I have a small farm in Davis County, so
All right.
I do have to apologize. I need to take off about 4 o'clock, but then I'll jump online to get to a meeting. So.
Okay. Well, we're happy to have you. We always appreciate agriculture. It plays a big part in our state. And then those are the new people. We have by way of announcement, Dr. Kelly Goonan was reappointed. He'll stay on the commission, or she'll stay on the commission. And then Jeff Hartley was also reappointed as well. He'll stay on the commission. With that, and then also, yes, thank you. We have a new technical advisor to the commission, Wade Allenson, and he's in the division's off-highway vehicle program, or he's the division's off-highway vehicle program manager. And then we'll move to agenda item number 2 for minute approval. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Make a motion we adopt the minutes.
Okay, so the motions that the last meeting we held was in April of 2025. The motions that we adopt those minutes, do we have a second? Okay, that's
Second, Commissioner Taylor.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. So we'll put that to a vote. Do we have to do a voice vote on these things? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All of those against say nay. All right, I rule that's unanimous. Thank you. With that, we'll turn this over to Patrick Morrison. He's the Recreation Program Director for our Regional Council updates.
Cool, thank you. So, hello everybody. I'm excited to kind of talk about a quick kind of look back at what we've been able to do with Outdoor Rec Initiative and the regional councils, as well as kind of get you primed for this year, and just step on the lead a little bit. Yeah, November 3rd when we come back is when we'll be doing the kind of final awarding of a lot of the recommendations coming out of the regional council. So, I know we have a few new members, so I'm going to do just a touch of recap to get us started. But so first, as many of you know, we're part of it. This commission worked to develop this Utah Outdoor Recreation Strategic Plan with Utah State University over 2 years, and the Outdoor Rec Initiative, the program really is in service of that. The vision is to be the tool that's delivering that. I'm not going to read all of these. We do have paper copies here. Please check it out because that's really what I'm trying to do with this program. Who's in control of the slides here? I guess, yeah. So just kind of looking back, 2023 was the first year. We didn't have the regional council set up. We're just kind of working within the commission, solicited a lot of projects, and in the end, we awarded $24 million to 12 projects, $101 million total project cost on that, and you can see the project breakdown. A very flexible program. It's really trying to address a lot of the gaps in our funding. We have some incredible programs, but they can't satisfy every need, and so that's kind of what we're doing here. And then, and then 2024, just last year, this is the first year with the regional councils. We awarded just a touch over the 20 million with a 40 million total project cost, and you can see the project breakdown type there. And then also, so this map here, this is kind of what we keep on our website. This is just a live kind of story map. You can scan that QR code to kind of interact with it, but those show you the regions, the different colors. The dots are showing you the project locations relative to the year, and if you click on those dots, they'll show more project information. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to be looking at some of the recommendations coming out of the councils, but just to give you an update on what are these councils. We saw the regions before. When I developed those borders for it, I leaned heavily on the Association of Governments borders. I think it made sense to use that as an infrastructure, and we do lean on the Association of Government staff to kind of help us as we are kind of facilitating these groups. But working with the Association of Counties, the League of Cities and Towns, we're able to get some members from their groups as well as from the AOGs. We lean on the federal government advisors in a non-voting role because of so many of the projects inevitably are intersecting with those lands or entirely on them. Also, as part, we have a general recreation council. All of these members are able to submit projects for consideration, but really we hope as we get all these people together, it's truly a site. We look at the build and support collaborative processes, which is kind of the first tier of that strategic plan, and that's kind of the hope. We're bringing all these people together. We don't want any surprises. If the Forest Service is planning a project that's in a county, we want those members of that county to understand and have input. And so I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of these councils is these opportunities for relationship building, trust building, collaboration, and so that's kind of where the councils are right now. And just wanted to give you, a snapshot of the membership. Again, thank you to all of these individuals for just being willing to spend the time. We meet once a month, for 2 hours to review projects. A lot of, starting in May, going through September. It's a lot of discussion. We do have project presentations, but it's a little bit more long form, more discussion. We like to try to talk about important, topics in the regions. But the Association of Counties, those commissioners have been great. The council members have been great. And then always the Association of Government staff, really help guide us as chairs and to really think regionally. I think there's always the concern that we want these projects to be addressing, kind of regionally significant projects. And then this year, so we met starting in May. We just kind of wrapped up what we call like our project presentation meetings. So we hear about projects, but at the very end we open up, or at the beginning we open up a project interest form. It's basically just to kind of get them on the agenda, get us talking about it. At some point we close the interest form, and then we pivot to a formal application. The formal application is more rigorous. We need more documentation, site plans, layers of support. The typical things you need when you're requesting this type of funding. So all told, we have 51 project submissions. With $55 million in requests. Traditionally, we're awarding roughly $20 million. We generally say, about 4 or 5 million each region, but I think we do want that geographic distribution. However, I think in the end, it's up to your discretion to fund the projects you think are most worthy. But you can see, a good spread of project types. The land acquisition, every year we do get a few of those. I think that's going to be just a crucial, part of this program going forward. But the requests by regions, I think the one thing I want to point out is, pretty big numbers across, but Central, that's the one that I think 2 years ago or last year, just not a lot of requests. And that's the region that we're working on the long-term recreation strategic plan for. So, it's very purposeful. It's to make sure the Central does have the opportunity to have the support to plan, conceive these projects, work with each other. And so, I look at that and I'm like, great, we're addressing a need there. So that's kind of where we're at this year with the project submissions. And I do want to kind of show you, I hope that you all will spend some time and kind of look at some of these. And I want to make sure you have the materials so you can actually see these projects, so you can spend more time with them. I don't want on November 3rd you be like, wait, what is this? I need to approve this. I want you to have that opportunity. So I've set up a few things. First, So these are kind of the sheets, and this is just a part of the sheet. I didn't want to show just a bunch of spreadsheets. But so every one of the ranking councils that we saw earlier has these sheets. There's scores on the, if we extend it, they'll be scoring, they'll be looking at kind of our prioritization matrix. But you all have, we have a master spreadsheet, and you can kind of click through all of these. And this is what you can see. These are the actual projects that we have coming in this year. But all of those hyperlinked project titles will take you to a project folder. And then the project folder will, and I guess you can maybe just go 2 slides ahead. And so as I'm talking about this, so the project folder, each of these project folders will have like a PDF of the full application. You'll see their letters of supports, you'll see their budget. When there's design engineering plans, you'll see those. If it's land acquisition, you'll see a lot of those appraisal documents. But just really want you to have the opportunity to spend more time and get a little bit more into the weeds, which is probably going to be pretty difficult in a 3-hour meeting. So definitely wanted to set this up for you. And so we'll make sure you have that. And I'm not sure if we've sent it out yet, or we will. And then if you want to go back to the other slide. So we, as part of this program, we do have formal ranking meetings, and these come after our presentation meetings. So each person who's submitting to this program is presenting to these ranking councils. We try to limit it to about 10-minute presentations with Q&As, and so for the last 2 months, those meetings have just been presentations. And now we're pulling out just the rankers, general counsel, their part of this process is now done. We're just working with our ranking councils. So these are the dates in which those final meetings will happen. This is when the ranking councils will get together, I'll help facilitate their discussions, but then they will kind of rank their projects as recommendations to send forward. And once these are done, I guess Thursday, October 30th, we'll make sure to get those out to you, so you also get to see where they've ranked by the regional councils. And I think that's about it. If anyone has any questions about this process, it's really been a pleasure working on it, and want to make sure you all have the information you need. You have a difficult task, and not a lot of time to do it. So,
Mr. Chair, can I offer a little insight from the director's perspective?
Yes, please.
So these regional recreation councils, and you saw, if you can go back to that slide that shows the cardinal directions. One more, yeah. So build and support collaborative processes. That was one of the recommendations in the strategic plan. I'm super excited and impressed about what they've been able to do with representing the entire state on a local level. There are other states that do some similar things around the country. Colorado's got one that's sort of similar to us, but they don't cover the whole state. They just sort of hit the more recreationally hotspot type of areas. Wyoming does something a little similar, but we're the only state that I know of that has statewide representation from a regional perspective on recreation things. So amazing work from Patrick and Carly and Emily, and just standing these committees up and doing all the follow-up required to keep them rolling and provide their input has been a big job. So shout out.
And thank you. And if I could just add, we have a few of you, outdoor adventure commissioners, Councilwoman Bradshaw and Councilwoman Hinton, actually work, sitting on these ranking councils. So this would just be my open invitation. If anybody wants to take part at this kind of ground floor throughout the year as we get it going next year, I would love to have you. I think it really strengthens the program to have, commissioner representation in those councils as well. So.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that overview. It's very helpful. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We'll go to Carly. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Carly Lanch. I'm the Trails and Planning Program Director for this division. And we will be going through kind of a rapid fire update on some of the projects that we are managing as a division. So I'll start, and then I'll send it over to Emily, and then I'll take it back, and we'll ping pong, and you'll get to hear about High Desert Trail at the very end. So with that, last year, this commission approved $200,000 to instigate our first statewide outdoor recreation participation trends study. And so basically what that will be, and we're in progress of developing it right now. We hired the RRC associates out of Colorado to support us, but we're basically looking at analyzing trends for outdoor recreation participation throughout the state and establishing a methodology so that we can do that repeatedly, so that we can monitor how outdoor recreation is moving in the state and how we can best support with our resources. So we're in the early stages of development of the methodology so that we can hopefully duplicate this process and help you all make informed decisions in terms of what outdoor recreation trends are taking place on our public lands. Jason, I know you were involved in the early thoughts of this. Would you like to speak about it?
Yeah, going back to the strategic plan, this data that we collect is going to inform and help us better accomplish all of the objectives. And we've made progress on all the objectives within the strategic plan, but I'm excited for this, for not just that, but everything that we do in the division, everything that the regional councils do, as well as a lot of our partners that are just, they're asking questions that really, frankly, nobody has the answers to. You know, how many people are coming from Salt Lake County to Garfield County to do OHV activities? We don't know, but we want to know, and I think it would be good information to help inform our infrastructure expenditures, and not just from this group's perspective, but the UR grant and our other grants as well. It'll help everybody, I think, to have a better insight into what's happening on the ground in terms of who's doing what, where are they coming from, how much are they spending, and so forth.
Thanks, Jason. So this process we're anticipating will take about 2 years to complete the methodology development, the data collection, and then creating a report that we will share publicly. And we're really excited to be able to do this in the state of Utah. It's another thing that sets us apart from other states. And our next project.
Great. So this is the Central Region Long Range Recreation Plan. This was awarded funding last year through the Outdoor Rec Initiative. And as Patrick alluded to, the Central Region kind of was the region that we identified would need some guidance and vision as to what is recreation going to look like and what kind of projects can the Central Region kind of dream up and hopefully submit them in future years. So we've contracted with the SE Group, a consulting firm here in Utah, that they're in the process of establishing that methodology for long-range recreation planning. Again, it's never really been done before in the entire country, so really at the forefront of innovation. And it's really to help this region, and hopefully do this in the other regions, be less reactionary and more proactive in planning when it comes to recreation. So right now we have a survey out. If you have visited Central Utah, or if you're a resident of Central Utah, we encourage you to take that survey and have your voice heard. And the process will continue after our survey. We're doing stakeholder engagement with focus groups, meeting with the locals. They did a in-person tour over the week, a couple weeks ago. So it's going along really well, and we're really excited to see what comes out of it.
Yep, go ahead.
As you work on these plans, does that incorporate search and rescue elements as well?
Our strategic plan identified search and rescue as a pretty big need throughout the state. So I think our team's already working to support search and rescue. But this is primarily looking at kind of establishing a project list well into the future for some of the resources that come out of this commission. So think about long-range transportation planning. They have a 35-year horizon, and they have a project list so that they can plan out capacity projects. And like Emily said, with outdoor recreation, we kind of, whatever's shovel ready and can apply for a grant and get in line first gets the resources. And so we're hoping that we can shift and just be more strategic and efficient with our state dollars for infrastructure and stewardship kind of related projects. By introducing this kind of more longer range planning approach. So, I mean, search and rescue definitely has come up in some of our stakeholder meetings. So if there's maybe a project that could help increase EMS access to a site, or if we could help develop a trail system that's really intentionally designed to allow for that EMS access or what have you, that could definitely come out of it.
Or maybe consider the needs of search and rescue EMS when designing the trails and other programs. This kind of goes to the previous slide and what Jason said as well, that if you ask any of these sheriffs from those counties, they'll tell you that most of the people they end up helping out there are not from their county, and it's a significant burden on their county resources. And so there's an ongoing conversation between the rural sheriffs and the state about what's equitable and fair, and how do we accommodate for this cost burden where if you're in Piute County or even St. Pete, Sevier County, it's really tough to pay for those resources that are critical to keeping people safe and alive. So thanks.
Representative Kyle had a question
Thank
too.
you. Yep. Go ahead.
Is this a project, a plan that you're managing completely inside the division, or have you had to outsource for a consultant to help do some of that engagement in the community?
Yeah, so we've contracted with SE Group is the consulting firm.
Okay, I was just thinking that's a really broad area to try and do
Yeah.
for a small but mighty staff. Okay.
No, yeah, they've been awesome to help us out. And like I said, they did come to, one's based in Moab and then some are based in Vermont, and they came out to Utah and did a week-long tour and visited all of the counties on the ground and got to meet people in person. So that was helpful.
I know that sounds like a great job. So
And one more thing. Oh, it looks like we have someone online.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, can you just remind me again, how much did that cost us for that recreation plan for the central region? How much did we invest in that?
This was a $200,000 project.
200,000.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So right now our survey is underway. It'll close at the end of this month. So yeah, again, please engage. Do we have any other thoughts on the plan? Questions?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. All right. So one other thing that I dovetails into this project management with the purpose of doing a long-range plan is it will help us as a team and a division be able to identify which projects might need a little bit more support from the division and state side. And so these are a couple of projects where we're just starting to, as a state entity, to help project manage a little bit more. The North Wash boat ramp is one that was approved by this commission last year. This is a photo of it. It's a very dramatic situation at the takeout of Cataract Canyon, which is Utah's little Grand Canyon. It's a phenomenal world-class recreation asset. It's one of the only rivers in the western U.S. where the number of permit requests through recreation.gov to float the river is actually in steep decline. So it's because it's so hard to get out of the water there, it's impacted the whole regional guide and outfitting community in a way that it's become a state priority to help address and fix this issue. Because if you can't get your boat out here, you have to motor, if you have a motor, 50 miles down in slack water where there's not a lot of current to get out at the Bullfrog Marina. So the guides and outfitters have been advocating for this project for decades with no support. And so we've been able to shepherd through an agreement at the Department of Interior level with Glen Canyon National Recreation Area to support this project. And so we're excited to say that we've contracted, or we're in the process of selecting a contractor to carry out and do this work. And so the amount of money that this commission we requested through the commission to support this project last year is a little bit short of what the contractor is requesting now that we did preliminary engineering, and now they're saying they need a little bit more, about $150,000 more. So we'll have that in front of you all for a discussion at the next meeting. But we're really excited to make progress on this recreation asset that's hugely important for the state of Utah, and we can't wait to have a project or a picture here for you all when it's complete. It will be a huge celebration for that region and for the guides and outfitters that have been seriously impacted. So we're in progress. This thing is, it's sometimes kind of frustrating. We've inherited projects that you think would be really fast and a quick solution to getting done on the ground. But because of kind of jurisdictional differences, lack of funding and prioritization on the federal side, some of these things just languish. We'll talk about the High Desert Trail here in a second, where we're excited to put some steam and energy into moving it forward. But we're expecting construction to take place. We were hoping that it would be moving now. With the shutdown, we're kind of delayed because we are working in concert with the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. But that's the North Wash boat ramp update for you all at this point in time.
Thank you. Is that the Forest Service?
So it's a Park Service unit.
Park Service, okay.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one too. Why it's been neglected for years is that the put-in where you put in the river to float this is on the it's in Canyonlands. And so when you come out, you're in a different Park Service unit, which is the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. So they've kind of been like, well, whose responsibility is it? It's not listed as an asset, as a formalized asset with the Park Service. So it's just been neglected, really poor management for decades. And it's a really it's been a really contentious issue. So I keep getting frustrated that things are moving so slowly. And then I'm reminded, no, it's actually moving at lightning speed that we had that we were able to get an agreement signed through DOI. It was on Secretary Burgum's desk earlier this year because of the guides and outfitters largely working really hard on this project. So. Any other questions or? It's a beautiful.
Trying to organize a field trip over here. So.
When the boat ramp is done, there's been some safety accidents that have been reported because I don't have a good photo here, but if you look at our prior presentation last year, you'll see that the guides, they have these big round rollers so that they can basically winch the boats out of the water, and it's an unsafe situation for all involved, but.
Okay, let's, any more questions on that piece?
Excellent. I know I just appreciative of the staff. I'm just kind of looking at our project list. It's like, yeah, many hands here. So I'm going to update on 5 Mile. Not a big update. You may remember initially they had requested, I want to say like 998,000, but they were awarded 500,000 last year for kind of design engineering at the 5 Mile Pass area, out in BLM, out in the Tooele County, for staging area, parking lot, camping, equestrian support. We came back and asked if we could run that just as a contractor, to help them in the RFP process. So we've started that. We got pretty far along. We were about to actually meet to select our contractor, and then the government shut down. So this is my way of saying it's in progress. I think once we have, the availability of the BLM staff, we'll pick it right back up. Our purchasing, we just have everything on hold. All of the contractors are aware that everything's on hold right now, but we hope, much like a lot of these other projects, once we have a federal government staff that can take these calls, we'll be right back to go. So that's the update for 5 Mile.
Thank you.
And any questions on that? Yeah.
All right. Guacamole Mesa, who's aware of these trails? They're down in Washington County. This was identified as a priority in the southwest region of the state to leverage state efficiencies to select a contractor to help with some environmental work there so that they can help manage the trails. They were user created, and so they're spider webby. They're really easy to get lost on. They're still really fun and dynamic, but yeah, that region selected it as a priority and requested division assistance as well. So we're in a very similar status for 5 Mile and for Guacamole Mesa in terms of, we do have a contractor selected, but we've been guided to not progress at this point in time because of the shutdown. So we're working with Jones and DeMille on that project. Do you have any more? You worked really closely with them.
No, I mean, I just think that it's a great project. You know, I mean, that trail network is incredible, but because it's been somewhat of an outlaw trail that's just being used, they can't in any way put any supportive infrastructure, you know, bathrooms, parking, trailhead, any of that. There's a property owner there that gets a little concerned by, you know, how it's being used, fire concerns, and so this is going to be a great project once we're able to kind of complete this NEPA and get some supporting infrastructure in there and protect the property owners nearby. Like, so I'll be excited to keep it going.
Yeah, I'm excited for this project. So I'm new to the council, but this is one of my favorite trail networks in the entire state. I just took my kids down there like last Friday. I've been down there several times. Every single time I've gotten a little bit lost because you start wandering off. You're like, is this the right way? You have to pull it up. No, we have to go back, go right. So this is exciting. And it wasn't until I saw that this was on there, I was like, oh yeah, there's not a toilet up there. The road's always a little bit sketchy going up. But so this will be great.
Yeah.
It'll also enable our trail crews to get an agreement and do work on that trail when needed to.
Yeah.
Sounds like a worthwhile project.
Yeah, and I think even initially, like when, you know, Carly and I went down there, we met with the Sign Forever in the national park, with the, you know, BLM, but with the landowners there, and it was really nice to kind of make those connections and see a face. You know, it was like, you know, I think they're like, who's coming in to do this? And then we got to meet with them and hear them out, and it was such a great experience. And so I think they feel really comfortable about it.
So is it not BLM land, or is it private?
It's adjacent to the private land, you know, so when you're on the trail, I mean, I think the trail, maybe in some parts, don't quote me on this, but on some parts it may kind of cross different jurisdictions, but the trail is BLM land, but they are just right adjacent to it. So they really feel a lot of the effects. They told us a couple of stories of just fire danger, you know, where it's like we had to like just, you know, evacuate immediately because of the fire danger and some of the,
That's
they
one
lost
of
the
the
structure and
wild things being down there. Like 80% of the trees are just black from being burnt, and it's pretty wild. So.
and some.
Okay.
So we'll pass it over to Patrick Parcell here in just a moment to talk about High Desert Trail. But the reason why these three are clumped together is because the commission funded all three of these. And so we're just providing an update on the progress there. And so this other project that he will be talking about is funded from a specific legislative appropriation. So just wanted to clarify that.
Perfect. Thanks, Carly. Yes, I'm Patrick Parcell. I'm our statewide Trails Program Manager, and just want to provide an update on the High Desert Trail, either for those who are familiar or if you're not, to kind of bring you up to speed. As you can see from the map, it spans pretty much the entirety of the state on the western edge. And really the goal for this trail is going to be to use existing roads and trails to make up a continuous 700-plus mile kind of like through route across the West Desert. And the goal is for it to link a bunch of these rural communities and kind of help spur some economic development and opportunity in these areas. And so you can see it spans all 7 counties over on the western side. And also this will enable us to develop new staging areas, improve signage and wayfinding, and hopefully open up opportunities for guides and outfitters to flourish. And essentially a huge just kind of recreation backbone for the west side of the state. That will, you know, kind of enable multiple forms of recreation, whether it's OHV or access to fishing, hunting, biking, you name it. And so, yeah, we're excited to be taking an active role in this. This project kind of germinated back in 2003 or so. And the idea of it has kind of changed over time. And we got involved a few years ago to really kind of help project manage it and get it across the finish line. And so now we're working on a NEPA environmental assessment document. We have a contractor, SWCA, who's helping us finish it up. We're developing kind of a comprehensive signage and wayfinding plan for this project, as well as having an MOU to kind of bring all the different partners together to kind of foster the long-term management of the trail going forward. And then also working closely with tourism folks in the counties to make it so they can really activate it and have it really be a driver for tourism in these areas. So, yeah, that's just a quick update. And, yeah, if anyone has questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, I have some questions, but let's go to Jeff first.
I'm just curious, does that trail cross any tribal land, or is it all state and BLM?
It is mostly state BLM, private. It does not go over any tribal land, but we are doing tribal consultation as part of the project.
Do we, I have a question. Do we have to acquire any land to make this possible?
No, there's no land acquisition involved in this.
Nice. Seems like a great project. Looks like a lot of fun to go do a little overland trip.
Yeah. I think we're all looking forward to this getting across the finish line and for us to enjoy it a bit more.
All right. Thank you.
And I'll jump in and say that Patrick mentioned that in 2003 is when this idea came out of the Paiute Trails Committee. And because of the nature of the length of it and the amount of jurisdictions and some of the cumbersome aspects of going through environmental review and everything else, we're really excited that we've been able to get it closer to the finish line than it's ever been. So we'll have to do a celebratory ride. We're hoping it could be part of maybe the America 250 next year. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we're hoping to do something there.
Great. How much of it is usable right now?
It's entirely usable right now. This will just be designating the formal route and allowing us to get signs in the ground. A lot of the counties are already chomping at the bit to get this underway.
Oh, nice.
So one more quick note on it. Similar to Guacamole Mesa, it's just not established and designated as a route, the High Desert Trail. Right now, you could run this route if you knew where you're going. A lot of people try it, but they also get lost. So kind of on that vein of the search and rescue, to be able to have route finding signage is going to cut the burden of search and rescue groups in the West Desert that are going out after people that have tried this route, but it ended up on a side road or stuck somewhere, and just because there's no signage or route finding information. It's just not designated.
Representative.
Yeah,
I have to remember what hat I'm wearing. Awesome recreation opportunities, but from an agriculture standpoint, again, tell me what lands this is on. BLM, you said BLM.
Yeah, so primarily BLM land, crosses some Forest Service land, some TLA land, and then some private as well, or kind of county city land. But we've tried as much as possible to engage the counties in the planning process to avoid any areas that they don't want it to go to and really target the areas where they do want to send folks.
Okay.
And
so my question is, you'd be going through a lot of different grazing allotments and probably gates. Is there gates or it'd be open?
So there are no gates on this as far as I think we avoided some of that, but there are certainly cattle guards, and part of this project is going to be identifying cattle guards that we need to fix to improve. Because the last thing we want to do is impact existing uses along the route. And so we did actually avoid a significant part near Vernon where there was a lot of kind of concerns with current grazing allotments and things like that.
Yeah. So if there is gates or fences, just maybe some information with your signage on etiquette when there's gates, we don't want animals mixing wherever possible. So education is important, I think, when protecting agriculture rights.
Absolutely. And I think since these roads are already all currently open, we're hoping to really kind of concentrate use and be able to better guide folks in the right areas and provide that information so that way they are recreating responsibly out there when they're going through some of these areas. So thank you.
That was a great question. Thank you.
All right. Looks like, are there any other questions online?
I have a quick question. This is Kelly Goonan. Anticipating that you might have through riders, have you thought about things like campsites or camping impacts or where people may stay along the trail because I could see that becoming kind of like a really big attraction where people are going to like through ride that entire trail.
Absolutely. So this is essentially like a motorized version of like the PCT or Continental Divide Trail. And so we've been working closely with the BLM and our contractor to figure out the exact way that we're going to encourage people to travel along the route as a whole. And so there are going to be certain permit guidelines for people who want to do like a guided like tour of the entire trail of like where they can camp, how close to water they can be, and things like that. And so we're really trying to encourage folks to stay in towns as they go along and encourage that economic development as they're traveling. But we will have kind of a detailed list of all the different recreation sites for people to camp and stuff like that. So yeah, you're spot on as far as the ultimate kind of goal that we see this going towards.
And I guess kind of related to that, what kinds of like trip planning or kind of pre-education materials might be provided as or developed as part of this project, so that visitors or users are planning appropriately when they go out there, and it's not we're not relying only on on-site trail marking and signage and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so we currently just recently got a web page up on our site to kind of, even though it's not formally designated, we know as word gets out, people are going to be excited and want to see it. And a lot of it has to do with trip planning. And we have it on our interactive map. As people zoom in, they can see where there's campgrounds, things like that. And so as we get closer to implementation, we're going to try and really have very good kind of clear guidelines for folks so they can have the best experience possible and also travel responsibly out there. All the counties as well are going to have specific county web pages that talks about some of the things that you can do if you want to stay longer in these communities and do kind of day trips and stuff like that.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Carly, I think you said that this wasn't funded by the commission, it's funded through a legislative request for appropriation, I assume. Can you tell us what that amount was, and is it sufficient, or will there be more needed to complete the plan?
It's a great question. So the appropriation was made during the general session in 2022 for $1 million, and so right now we are utilizing it for this environmental route assessment review process. And so there will be we anticipate that there will be a remainder that we can potentially use to help purchase some of the signage and maybe some of the branding kiosks and things like that. We also are going to be pointing our counties towards our existing off-highway vehicle recreation grant to support where needed. So at this time, I think we're set in terms of resources for the trail, but yeah.
That's
Representative.
Yeah,
So you mentioned you work with the counties in the areas. Any other stakeholders that you have involved?
Throughout, yes. There's 800 miles almost of trail. So we've worked really closely with our counties to lean on any sort of private property relationships when necessary. We've engaged with UDOT, with our sister agencies here and within DNR, so Wildlife Resources, Forestry, Fires, State Lands, our Public Lands Policy Coordination Office, the Trust Lands Administration, and now our federal partners too with the Forest Service. And our user groups have been involved to a degree as well, since the genesis was from the Paiute Trails Committee back in 2003 or so. But
yeah, and the only other thing I'll add is this trail in particular was called out in Washington in 2009 in the Federal Management Lands Act that it involves a public comment process, and so that will be part of this. It's probably in the springtime, a public comment period where folks along the route can kind of see kind of the final recommended action and then some of the alternatives so they can kind of provide further information to us.
Thank you.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any other comments or questions. Thank you for that overview on those projects. I love this commission because they're just all cool. Everything's cool. So yeah, I need more time to recreate. Want to do it all, but all right. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, number 5. We'll go to Emily.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'm Emily Meadows. I'm the statewide recreation planning coordinator here in the Division of Outdoor Recreation, and I'll just be going over some background about the Outdoor Recreation Planning Assistance Program. Historically, ORPA was offered just through our division staff time. And the goal of ORPA was really to facilitate and encourage strategic planning when it comes to recreation and to really help those more rural communities that may have limited capacity. They might not have a planner, let alone a recreation planner. But its overall goal is to really provide that technical planning support that can, boost their economy, provide safe recreation opportunities. So last year in the fall of 2024, thanks to this commission, it was a one-time allocation of $1.5 million that was awarded or given to, help with planning. And so we were able to relaunch the ORPA program as a grant. And the intention of this was really to build that capacity at the local level through engaging with consulting services. So I'm only one person, and as much as I want to go throughout the state and plan and help communities plan, it just was not really a good way of using the funds. So this is just kind of a brief snapshot of what the application looked like. It was only open for about a month, just over that. All the eligible applicants were similar to our other grant programs, the municipalities, counties, state, tribal, federal governments, as well as nonprofits could apply. The max amount people were able to request was $200,000. And when it comes to the match, there was no financial match requirement. And this was really to lower that barrier that often comes with the financial, barrier to planning resources. And so we really wanted to make it as accessible as possible. All I really asked for was, a letter of commitment that the applicant would be available to coordinate and have meetings with me as we, went through their application, the awarding, and then if they had, getting their consultants chosen. So next slide. These were kind of, I won't go through all of these, but this was kind of just to guide communities what is eligible versus what was not eligible. So you can see, anything planning, kind of that pre-work before you even get to building something, whether that's a feasibility study, design, conceptual design, engineering services, NEPA, like we said, that environmental piece can be really important or a barrier to a lot of these projects. A lot of master planning, whether that's a trails master plan or a recreation master plan for a community. A lot of communities have never done that before. They might have a section of parks and recreation within their general plan, but recreation planning is really kind of this up and coming industry. And so those that were interested could apply for that. You can go on. This was just kind of to show the applicants what the process looks like. First, they had to meet with me as the coordinator and the planning coordinator to see if their project was even eligible. Then they could submit their application. We reviewed each application within our internal staff, and those that were eligible were then reviewed by a small committee of professionals that were experts in planning and recreation. This was kind of the matrix that the committee was given when reviewing applications, and each so they wanted, we wanted to really focus on those 4th, 5th, and 6th class counties and the small and rural communities. What's the need? How can it, help with the economic development or impact? How can it improve access to recreation in those communities? And then kind of the value of it as a whole. So this is the stats. We received 43 applications that were eligible with $4.5 million in requests. After it was all said and done, 21 of those applications were awarded, whether it was a complete their full request was awarded or a partial request. But we used all the $1.5 million because it was so popular and such a high demand. It was spread across 13 different counties, and if you go to the next slide, this is kind of more just the visual. You can see that just over, it's pretty 50-50 split between rural counties and more urban counties. And I would say it was a success because the urban counties definitely have more demand when it comes to recreation. One of the projects being a statewide project as well through the Statewide Historic Preservation Office. They're doing a whole study and seeing how recreation and, historic downtowns and main streets can really complement each other and help each other out. So they're doing a whole study with the funds that they received. But this year, this is just kind of looking back from ORI. So these funds, the 1.5 was pulled from this ORI fund. And you can see in 2024, the figures up there are all planning related projects and the dollar amounts associated with the planning stuff. So 2024, there was a $2.8 million of requests, and, you know, very small amount of those were awarded. In 25, it was a $6.7 million of requests, 1.4 were awarded. ORPA was a 4.5 million. And even this year in ORI, there's a $3.6 million. So we see this huge important demand that people need help with planning, whether that's feasibility studies, NEPA, or just the plan itself. They don't necessarily have the capacity or the person to do it in-house, and so we're trying to really fill that gap. So with moving forward, we hope that it's up for discussion, but setting aside another 2.5 million for this next year to help with these planning projects specifically. And next slide. So what does that really look like? Again, these goals are to fill the gaps of our other grant programs that really focus on the infrastructure, where they can support a little with design and engineering, but not so much on the you know, I guess you could call it soft goods rather than the hard goods, the stuff that has to come before. With that, we hope that, you know, these communities can then be better set up to be more competitive in our other grant programs. When they can have a better conceptual design or an engineering, you know, design, they can then, you know, be more successful with the infrastructure grants. And really, the last goal is to provide the guidance and help them navigate what it looks like to do recreation planning and really empower them with different tools. So as we kind of touched on earlier, it can still, you know, fund all these different project types of master planning, engineering, feasibility studies, but we also hope that some of these funds can go towards our division to help provide better resources. So we're in the works of developing a Utah Trails Planning, Design, and Development Handbook, and hopefully some of these funds can assist with that process and creating those, and then also creating some type of toolkit for rural communities when they want to do recreation planning, what they need to think about, where do they even start, what kind of resources or conversations do they need to have with landowners or partnerships that they need to build so that can really set them up for success. Because as I've been helping and meeting with a lot of these folks, that they're always kind of just like, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do I talk to this private landowner? If I want a trail easement, do I meet with the federal partners? So really trying to set them up for success so that they can be empowered to then do it on their own. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. This isn't so much a question as advocacy, that this is a really great, in my opinion, use of our funds. I had the opportunity to serve on the ORPA committee and do some of this evaluation, and from my municipal experience, I serve in a city of the third class on the Wasatch Front, so we're a decidedly medium-sized city, and getting through NEPA and planning process and master plans to be able to be eligible to draw down an ORI grant was a big burden and a big learning curve for us, and we're, you know, not the most sophisticated of cities in Bountiful, but we're a medium size, and so that was an eye-opening experience for me to go through as an elected official, and something I become kind of passionate about when I meet with other cities that are smaller and have small parks departments, small planning staffs, that if we want really good projects that are ready to roll and don't, you know, kind of languish and get stuck in any phase, then this is a good use of money to get them, you know, professional help to do this part of the process, because cities and counties, you know, have a lot of other traditional things they're doing with those planning staffs, engineering staff, and parks and recreation staff, and to get some of these things launched just takes a little bit extra. And often in small rural communities, you have part-time elected officials that are also the employees writing the grants or writing the plans and things like that. And so it really helps out. So I think this has been a good use to designate some of our funds towards this effort so that the pipeline is really good and would support us continuing to do that.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions? Yeah, it sounds like a great program, and planning, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of different jurisdictions and have to deal with NEPA and those things, it can be very, very helpful. It looks like there was a recommendation for 2.5 million, so that'd be $1 million more than last year. Is that?
Yeah, with the intent for some of it to go towards our division and, those resources, but also running the grant as well.
Okay, got it.
And those two resources, maybe you can chime in about the development that's already underway with the handbook.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've heard a lot from communities is, and as Kate mentioned, most cities and counties aren't trail professionals. They don't quite know what it takes to develop a recreational trails program, to manage it, and to see it through success in the long term. And so they've asked us, like, do you have any kind of state handbook for planning guidelines, maintenance guidelines? How much is it going to cost for us to do this? What's the right size network for our community? And so that's what we're really hoping to develop, is to provide communities with a handbook that teaches them how to engage with land managers, teaches them, kind of the strategies for figuring out what is the right trail network for them. Just to help them develop a better, quality of life, encourage sustainable tourism. It's something I think that if we were to develop as a division would be extremely valuable for communities when they start looking at funding opportunities, and hopefully just make it so once we do fund them through ORI or other grant programs, we know it's an efficient use of funds.
Sounds good. I think that, it's worth at least keeping it the same or maybe adding a little bit more to it. I think we should probably look at that in our next meeting, when we're looking at all of our funding as a complete, sort of looking at the whole picture before we make a decision, if the commission sounds good with or agrees with that.
I'm fine with that plan. I just wanted to make sure that while we were getting this highlight that I chimed in on how important it's been for a city of my size, and that compared to some of these other applications we see, we're way bigger, but we're not that big.
Right,
So we're
right.
to give you a sense of scale. One last thing I would mention is the manuals and things like that are important. The trainings, the in-the-field trainings for how you're going to take care of these infrastructure assets that communities build is also really important. I spent last 2 days in part of a trails training, because it's great to build these things, but you got to be able to do that O&M ever after. And traditional parks and recreation trained staff, take care of fields and equipment and trees, things like that, and managing, in particular, trail systems is just a different type of training. So Utah State came and did a great training regionally, so that people didn't have to drive as far, and it was really great. But that may also be something to think about when we're looking at a full list, as can that be a component too? Because if you build it, they will come, and if they come, you're going to need to repair it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, point well taken. All right. Any other comments on ORPA? All right, we'll move. Anyone? Okay, we'll move to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 6. Patrick or Jason, you gonna lead with that?
I can run with this one. So just to give just a little bit background on like what I do here, I manage, depending on how it shakes out, roughly like 8 to 10 grant programs, and that means I deal with a lot of contracts, a lot of applicants. Inevitably, as we are awarding these, there's complications. Some major, some minor. Some are small extension requests. Some are just small modifications to budgets. Others, like the 5 Mile, for example, that's one that we came to modify that agreement to have the state manage that. Or I think we had another one previously within the ORI where the BLM had received funding for the Colorado Pathway, and we worked and sought approval to transfer those funds to UDOT as project manager. So those are examples of very large, significant contract amendments. But as I am working with certain applicants within this program, it's my desire to always just be, very open, and I want to make sure everything I'm doing is with the approval that I need. So I will have certain applicants who, want to just do a small, budget modification, where there's no award increase, but hey, we found some additional resources here, which freed up this money in the budget. We would like to put that here, and when they submit a budget, we want to refer to that budget when we're, working with our contract, when we're giving reimbursements. It should be, somewhat similar, and that's just kind of how we want to run programs. But as part of this, I wanted to come and ask, this commission to, give me some discretion on how I can manage certain of these very small-scale contract amendments. I tried to create, a few good guidelines. For example, an award increase that is no more than 10% of the award. As inflation hits, inevitably this comes up. I see this a lot in our other programs. Scope of work adjustments that maintain consistency. This is an example. We were going to do, 5 miles, but actually it makes a lot more sense. We're going to do 4 miles here. There's certain scopes that are very true to the project and what its goal is, but I think do necessitate a contract amendment to revise that scope of work. Again, I kind of mentioned already with a line item budget. Sometimes they're wonderful. It's like, hey, we were able to get this donated to us. We would like to put in these ADA stalls instead, where they're really creating, augmenting the services of the area, or just extension of contract dates, with the federal shutdown right now. We've had a lot of flash floods over the past couple of years. Things happen, and contracts sometimes can become, impossible to get the project done within. So I'm coming to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions about these, to, kind of revise some of these standards. This, just to be clear, I'm modeling off of kind of our process that we use with the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant and how we want to process some of those smaller scales before we approach that, the Utah Outdoor Recreation Infrastructure Advisory Committee for those formal approvals. So that's kind of the bulk of it. I'm open to any questions, Jason, if you have anything to add, but just really looking for a small level of discretion for small contract amendments, so I don't, need to either wait for our next meeting or call you in to approve me shifting a line item on a budget. Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Sounds logical to me. Like council member, Bradshaw, I serve on a council also, and as often as we can let staff do simple things rather than trying to get the group together or add to agendas that are already full. Sounds like a good move, as long as the intent of the project is still in line.
Yeah, and thank you, Commissioner. And I think, we're working with Director Curry. If there's anything that's mildly borderline, I don't want to make that decision. I appreciate not making decisions and letting you commissioners make those decisions. So.
Yeah, I think that obviously makes sense. I do have a couple of questions though. When we award these, do they have any contingency planning built in? Is that part of what we do when we award?
Could you give me a touch more detail on what you mean by contingency?
Let's say I'm building a house for recreation. If I say, okay, I'm going to build this $500,000 house, but I know that I'm probably going to say, hey, I want this. I'm going to want some nicer appliances or something, or maybe I know that I need to put 10% just for unforeseen circumstances. Do we include that when we award the grants?
I think with ORI, it's encouraged, using the model of the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant, for example, we allow up to 10% of contingency, and we've tried to carry that across, particularly as, we have seen a lot of, inflation. And so, I'm all for allowing certain contingencies, like a 10% contingency. I think it's best practice to ask for a little bit more because, when they come in under budget, that's great. We get to reallocate that.
We're usually funding less than they asked for, right? So it's hard to have that contingency in there.
Yeah, there
A
is.
lot of these line items.
There's a decent amount of partial funding. And not to get off topic, but this year's applications, there's a very deliberate, like, what level of partial funding would you accept? Please itemize, what that partial funding would be going to. So I'm trying to kind of, approach what that looks like as well. But yeah, I think going forward, a very clear policy on, like, please include a 10%, or please know you have that opportunity to have a 10% contingency.
Right, because if we're saying, okay, now we're going to give them 10%, how many are going to come back and ask for 10%, and then all of a sudden we're over budget? I'm just wondering, how do we make sure they stay in budget?
Yeah, I think some of that is you would have to, trust myself, trust Director Curry. I can say, I've had the pleasure of working with these programs for, over half a decade now, and I could count the amount of actual, like, award increases on one hand for specific projects, like so. Yeah.
And then
we're pretty
right.
pretty firm with it.
And then do we want to define what small scale is? Do we want to?
I struggled with that, and and always credit to our wonderful Attorney General. There's definitely some abstractions. Small scale, like consistency, reasonable. I think these are one of the opportunities. If you do have certain limitations that you want to put in, like I welcome them. But yeah, small scale. It's tricky,
I'd like
right?
to get, I guess I'd like to get some feedback from you. Is small scale? If we kind of put some parameters around you, so you don't have, you probably don't want people questioning you, like what kind of parameters do you guys want? Do we want to say like 100,000, or is it 50,000? What would you say is small scale?
When we're talking small scale, are you referencing specifically the award amount?
Correct.
Yeah, because initially I had like 10%, and I thought about putting a monetary value like 50,000, 100,000. This program, the level of diversity in funding amounts. Some are funding a $20,000 kind of NEPA getting over the finish line. Others, we funded $5 million. So the 10% felt a little bit more flexible, but at the same time a little more rigorous. Like if a $20,000 project maybe goes over budget 5,000 and they need that, you're just like, well, I can only give you 2 because that's 10%.
Right.
So it's complicated.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But if we're going to 10% over on the 5 million, then there's a.
And that's one I wouldn't feel comfortable. Right? Like, there's no way I'd feel comfortable just approving that without, putting it in front of you all. So yeah, it's a little tricky. I think at some point there is going to be, some trust, working, with Director Curry and myself, and just my willingness to always want to take it to you if it's at all questionable.
I'd offer maybe 10% up to a dollar amount.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, what does this commission think? I'm looking for suggestions.
I'm glad you all get to make
what
this.
that dollar amount might be. I don't want to put you guys in any weird spots, right?
From a municipal perspective, usually, I'd be curious to hear what Layton's level is, Tyson, but our staff has the ability to do expenditures up to $10,000 before they need to come to the council for approval, so that we can, apply that rigorous side to it. Maybe there's, I hear you on the a small NEPA grant, and 10% being 2,000 seems like an easy thing to move, but 10% of 5 million feels like a big thing to move. And so maybe there's like a hybrid approach where we say a grant, if a grant is of a certain dollar amount, then the staff has the ability to move 10%. But if it's a grant of a bigger dollar amount, then we actually just give a dollar amount so that it, because moving $500,000 for a $5 million grant does feel like a kind of a big decision.
Right.
And that sounds very elegant. And just so I can speak from my experience, so far with the ORI program, and then again with all of the other programs, these award increase requests are pretty rare. And I honestly, if everyone's comfortable with kind of the rest, that's really where most of what I would say kind of the bottlenecking is, where I don't feel comfortable making this decision on my own, and I wanted to go from the commission. So even if we did remove award increase from this, that would satisfy what I would anticipate, 95% of these small scale changes to the contract would be.
Yeah, I don't want you guys coming and asking the commission for $2,000, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is appropriate to have in there, but I'm just wondering what we cap that at.
An award increase no more than 10%, not to exceed 20,000.
Does that work, or do we need more than flexibility than that?
Yeah, that works for me for sure. Yeah.
And I didn't have any concerns about the bottom two items, like those that I'm kind of aware of on needing a couple more months because a contractor was slowed on a project, or that giving that flexibility to staff didn't give me any heartburn.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So does anybody have any other comments at this point? Okay, I'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to make one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to need your help. So I would make a motion that we would approve this contract amendment authority, with the one change being the award increase is no more than 10% up to $20,000. Was that the suggestion?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Second.
Can't remember what I heard over
Yes,
there.
yeah. So do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that was sorry. Okay,
Krista Hinton.
Krista Hinton, thank you, Commissioner. Oh, go. Okay, we'll do that. I'm going to restate the motion first. So the motion is that the program director may authorize changes to the ORI contracts when the award increase is no more than 10% of the award up to $20,000, that the scope of the work adjustments that maintain consistency with the project, with the approval of final project delivery, that line item budget modifications where no award increase is requested, and that extension of contracts expiration dates when reasonable. And we'll do a roll call vote.
So just to clarify with the motion, you're not saying that those are all required, right? We're going to do each one as a separate reason where the division can exercise authority?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Nicole is our Attorney General representative. All right. Let's see here. I will start with a roll call here in the room, and then we'll go online. Do you want to start with you, Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Schallenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartley?
Yes.
Commissioner Curry?
Yes.
Chair Kyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes.
All right. Online, Commissioner Hinton?
Yes.
Commissioner McConkey?
Yes.
And then Commissioner, last but not least, Goonan, Dr. Goonan. You might be on mute if you responded.
Sorry, no, I just heard my name. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, yep, sorry. We're doing a roll call vote for this program director authorization.
Oh, yes, I approve. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. It looks like that was unanimous, and yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Agenda item number 7, status of off-highway vehicle admin rule change. We'll go to Wade Allison.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Just a quick introduction. My name is Wade Allison. I'm the state OHV program manager, and I've been asked to talk about a couple of quick rule changes. We have one that's already been approved, and that was related to House Bill 439. And basically what that did is that allowed agencies and nonprofits to get upfront funding up to the total amount of the project. Prior to that, it was generally 25%, and now they can request up to the full project. So that's helpful, especially for some of these smaller nonprofits that don't have a lot of financial backing, and that they can get moving on a project. That's already been approved through the administrative process, and that was the motion for that started back in May. The most recent one we have is We have a rule change. It's with the rules right now. We're expecting a signature on it here shortly. But what it's going to do is it's going to allow nonprofits as well as our state, federal, and county partners to match hours for a grant up to 1 year prior to the grant being submitted. So what this means is if you get a project and you identify it, you'll submit a letter of intent to the division that this is the project, this is the work we would like to do that will support the project, and you can go out and start accumulating those match hours before the grant application is due. And that's a big deal, especially in our desert areas, because you can actually, your work window in the desert with the heat and the winter is very small. So you can start on a project in the fall and work those hours up and get it awarded in the spring. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how that works, and we have a lot of excitement surrounding that. Does anybody have any questions on those two rule changes?
Doesn't appear so.
Real quick, you mentioned search and rescue. My heart is with search and rescue. I ran search and rescue for about 15 years here in Emory County. And I just want to point out that with the OHVR grant here in August, we awarded $1.7 million through our OHV fees. And a large portion of that goes to support search and rescue operations. We awarded everything from radios to machines to drones to medical stuff. So I just wanted to point out to the council that the OHV community is a big supporter of search and rescue, which it just doesn't apply to OHV. It's all the way across the board. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wade. We appreciate the update. Okay. We'll be going to agenda item number 8, status of administrative rules on life jackets with Ty Hunter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the commission for having me be able to take a little bit of time and to talk a little bit about life jackets and some of the situations that we are kind of being placed in with these. So I am also the technical advisor for this commission too on water and boating safety. So just thank you for that. Back in June of this year, we were approached by a legislator with questions about life jacket requirements. The following items were an issue for this legislator. Mandatory requirement to wear personal flotation devices on whitewater rivers in the state. Currently, as per our administrative rule, R650-215-6, all waters not listed as flat waters, which there's a designation in R650-215-7, to where if in a flat water section they can, those that are 13 years and older can remove or loosen a jacket on those designated flat water areas. So the legislator had an issue with that mandatory requirement of wearing of a personal flotation device. Second was the required carriage of personal flotation devices on vessels, on all vessels, which is regulated by Utah code, which requires, and it is also regulated by federal code, but I'll get to that in just a second, which requires a life jacket for each person that's on board a vessel that properly fits them. And then the third one is the mandatory requirement for youth 12 years and younger to wear PFDs also. The legislator also, we went through and we informed the legislator of the following items. The required carriage of the personal flotation devices was required by, or is required by federal law, and the state has no preemptive rights in changing this. And so at that point in time, the legislator conceded to that comment. Second was the removal of the mandatory requirement for youth 12 years and younger to wear the personal flotation devices was not statistically supported, and in person, just with personal experience and career experience, and kind of looking at it as a love for our children, not right with that. After some discussion with that, there was also the legislator conceded on that. Thirdly, the removal of the mandatory requirement for individuals 13 years and older on all rivers to wear U.S. Coast Guard approved personal flotation devices, again, is not statistically supported. The representative argued that the requirement was an egregious government overreach on our citizens. A compromise was reached in that meeting that the division would research and change the rule, and I'm going to place in here if needed with that. Last Tuesday, so this a couple of days ago, our Boating Advisory Council was provided this information, and we received public comments in opposition to any rule change lessening the personal flotation device requirements. These comments were from committee members themselves, the Utah Drowning Prevention Coalition, and then as also part of that, the Utah Recreation and Parks Association, their aquatic center professionals, and a concerned mother, that all of which stated in these rules work, and in essence, why fix what is not broken with that. Lastly, since our meeting, the program has been coordinating with Utah Attorney General's office in finding a potential solution that can appease all parties involved in the best interest of the safety of all of our citizens. With this, a possible solution is available, and it is where we can add additional river sections to the list of river sections that are considered flat water, to where they can be removed. And then we would go through and research those river sections, and therefore go through the administrative rule process of listing those areas as flat water. And that's basically my report as it is, and open for any comments or questions that you all may have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any comments from the commission? All right. Representative Schallenberger is going to tell us why he doesn't want life vests on kids.
Was this legislator you're talking about in the room today?
No, the legislator is not in the room today, and I've kept it pretty general, just so we're not pointing out. If you want to know, we'll talk afterwards.
No, I appreciate this. I think it's an important discussion. I mean, I've had several discussions with my family. We were just down at Sand Hollow State Park and last weekend and found out they have a cool cliff jumping area at the state park. My brother was sharing a story how they were down there one weekend, and then a week later, there's a full adult guy that jumped in and never surfaced again. Just done, and they dragged his body out like a few days later, right? And I'm sure you hear stories like that all the time from people falling off stand-up paddleboards, and the life jacket sitting there laying on the stand-up paddleboard, or the boats, or white water. And I guess one question I'd have is, as you look at different sections of water, is how do you take that into consideration? Because the river can change on a day-to-day basis depending on the flow rate, the speed of the water, right, the weather, and yeah, how those sections can change.
Yeah. So right around 2013, when I took this position, we were evaluating what to do, because our rivers were classified in the river classification section, classification of like the 1, 2, 3, 4 in those classifications. But those classifications, I'm going to explain that even the professionals will say they are subjective. They are subjective to experience and also with that ebb and flow of whether storms are coming, whether it's runoff, whatever we have with that. And so also in a coordination with looking and trying to figure out what's going to be the best piece, that where it's like, okay, well, if this river's at class 1 and 2, then we can have it considered this, and then when it's this one, it can be there. That's a hard piece where the general public can generally understand with that. So we put this as trying to be the simple piece that would be the overall benefit for folks. And so that's kind of where we ran into that piece, and that's why we did this. So unless designated as a flat water in the state of Utah, every stream, if you're floating down that stream or on that stream on a vessel with that as defined in Utah code, you were required to wear a life jacket. It has, in essence, statistically proven that our water, our rivers are safer than even our adjoining neighbors in that aspect, because there is some discrepancies with that. You look at our neighbor to the east in Colorado, the majority of their fatalities occur on their rivers. Yes, they are technical, they are colder water, but we have the same, and our frequency is much less. It's almost to the portion that it's maybe one time in a decade when we have a boating individual off of a vessel perish because of something that happened with it. And sometimes that happens with a life jacket, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of a freak circumstance that occurs here in our state, and we really have some safe waterways. I don't want to take any more, but I want to just kind of put off of that as, yes, in my experience, I have seen that. Yes, in my experience, I have given death notifications. I have pulled youth from the water, adults from the water, and I run our remotely operated vehicle recovery team. So we know when we're in this, we're called out here, and we're helping and assisting search and rescue efforts, and I should say recovery efforts in this aspect. So it's very dear to me.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And one thing that's sort of confusing, I've been boating with a couple times with some friends, and I have my certified thing on, and I look at them and I go, that one looks way cooler than mine. And I start looking at these boating ones, but like it's written on their thing. It's like, this is not a certified PFD. It's just it's floatier than just you're not wearing anything. So I was like, oh, it looks cool, but I don't know how effective it is.
Thank you for that one. That is another, I don't even know how to put it, thorn in my side and in the system that's there. Those are considered either impact or crash vests. They are in a very kind of, in essence, for a specialized, very specialized, but they are not Coast Guard approved. There has been approval to investigate what we call a level 50 vest. Vests have changed from type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to leveled vests, and it's wearable or throwable. These leveled vests are classified on newtons. What does that mean to you or me? One floats you more than the other one does. And so we're looking currently out right now. If you were to go to Costco or most of the shelved vests that you can see in there, they're level 70 vests. These ones that you have you've seen or you stated about might hit a level 50, but more than likely will not hit a level 50. So the level 50s, I've been told, but I have not seen. I've gone to a couple of dealerships that buy life jackets, and they're looking at buying their 2026 life jackets, and they cannot see the availability of these level 50s yet. But I've been told by a large life jacket manufacturer that they will be hitting the market in the 2026 season. So that'll be a benefit, but again, it's not going to float you as much as a traditional jacket. But yes, jackets have come a long ways. If we can look in our lifetime, as some of us that are a little older than folks, they've come a long ways, and they're much more comfortable. Yeah, they're still good. They're wonderful jackets, but they're not comfortable to wear.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here.
Just add quickly on that. Those crash jackets, they're primarily used for competition, where there's Overwatch. If you go down, you're unconscious, there's somebody that's going to go grab you immediately. Coast Guard approved are intended to keep you floated in a position where you could continue to breathe if you were unconscious. So but like you said, the market has evolved to the point now where there's just so much overlap that the Coast Guard, Ty sits on the national, boating law administrator group to evaluate all of these. So we're trusting in that process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
How do you treat? Let me ask it a different way. Each river has a classification, or do you treat different sections of a river differently? Because you can have flat water, and then you can have rapids, and then you can have flat water.
Yes. So the designated flat water areas are usually the pool portion, and then when we have the ripple portions, those would be white water. We only have sections on the Green River and the Colorado River that have been set as flat water areas. The rest of it would be a wear restriction that's on that. Really, we're not looking at any canals. There's no agricultural, watering canals, anything like that. That is not considered that. These are recreational areas, and the areas that we're looking at is probably most likely for everybody here that would know is the Weber River. We would be looking for it just, starts in Summit County, ends in Morgan County, through there. That's a very popular and very heavily urbanly used float on the Weber River. Again, the Provo River is another one, very heavily used by the Utah County folks, the urban push that gets up in the Provo Canyon. And then, our Green and Colorado that are just destination runs, as we have those, and used heavily by our guides and outfitters. And then there is the Sevier. The Sevier River has a high potential of being listed as a flat water, and the Virgin is another one. But again, the Virgin's not a very popular run with it, but a Virgin could be listed as that too.
What is the White River designation?
Anything that's not listed as a flat water.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments online or from the commission? Nope, it doesn't look like it. Thank you very much. We
thank you.
Appreciate the update.
Appreciate it, Chair.
Okay, that brings us to public comment. Is there anybody in the room or online that would like to participate? We can designate the far right speaker if anyone would like to come up. Does not look like it. I'll entertain a final motion then.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do we have to second that? What's that?
Nope. That's
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.